Today's newsmaker is Turkey's war next door. The newsmaker's Andrew Hopkins takes a look at the effects it has had on one Turkish city just a few miles from the Syria border.
It's a modern, busy metropolis in the south of Turkey, an economic powerhouse where 1.5 million people live. But in recent years, life has changed dramatically here.
Gaziantep is one of Turkey's biggest cities. It's also one of its most industrialised, and in many ways it's a frontier town. Just a few kilometres drive from here is the border with Syria, and many of the tales of the war there spill over into the city here.
Those stories come from people from all walks of life. I've come to Gaziantep to find some of them. Close to 500,000 Syrian refugees live here now. We're now going to meet a blind imam from Syria who was living in a village near to Aleppo when Daesh took over, and he's going to speak to us about his experiences. Ahmed Nasser lives in this abandoned shop with his disabled wife and 2 children. Back home in Syria, Daesh tried to force him to work for them. He refused.
One day in my village we heard that someone had committed a small crime. Daesh declared that they were going to behead him. They ordered me to attend the beheading and tried to force me to sanction it. I was afraid, but I refused and went home to pray on the day.
Ahmed was an influential imam, involved in protests against the government. Now in Turkey, every day is a struggle.
It's hard for me here. I have a disability. I am blind. I'm not in the refugee camps, and it's hard to find work.
People here are trying to make a fresh start. 25 families live in this apartment block. It's paid for by a Turkish charity. Abdullah used to live in Daraa. When her husband was arrested for protesting against the regime, he was imprisoned and tortured to death.
One day they came knocking on our door. There were 5 armed soldiers and they ordered us to give them all of our money. One of them said, "Give me your laptop or I'll kill your children." They grabbed my husband and took him away. I didn't know what they would do with him. Many months passed and we heard some of the men from our town had been tortured by the regime. We found pictures of them on the internet. One of them was my husband.
Night falls in Gaziantep, and we've arranged to talk to a former Syrian general who defected to the FSA. We meet him on a rooftop in the city centre. Zahar Sakat says he was involved in the regime's chemical weapons program.
I was high up in the army, a respected general, but I realized that the government became preoccupied with killing its own people.
Gaziantep, he says, is vital to the FSA's military campaign.
It allows us to liaise with other players in this war, and also to show the international community the crimes that Assad is committing.
One thing unites the Syrians we met here. They're all running from a war that has destroyed their country. And they found a haven here in Turkey. But as long as there's no end to the war, more and more will come from across the border. Andrew Hopkins, TRT World, The Newsmakers.